Welcome to StartupHakk. I'm Spencer Thomason, and here at StartupHakk, we'd love to train software developers in our coding boot camps, as well as build custom software solutions for companies. So I do a lot of work as a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and a solid 25 years in software development, I've mastered the art of transforming technology, teams, and products. So the 2024 Stack Overflow Developer Survey is out, and it's packed with insights that every developer and every tech leader should pay attention to. So let's dive into our subject today. All right, so let's dive into our subject today. Now, this whole time I'm sitting here in my head saying, so tell me what you want, right? Like the song is going over my head, so I have to kick off with just a little bit of some music.
Yo, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
All right, now that I've got that music stuck in your head this morning, we're going to dive into some things so the Stack Overflow survey, which Stack Overflow, you'd have to live under a rock as a developer if you don't know what Stack Overflow is. Come on, let's be honest. A third of our code comes from Stack Overflow. But they release a report every single year that tells what developers and what tech leaders should be paying attention to. One of the biggest takeaways, developers want more opportunities to grow, more learning resources, and more flexibility in how they work. This isn't just a trend, it's a clear signal that the industry is evolving and developers are leading the charge. They're no longer content to just write code, they want to be part of the dynamic, learning-driven environment. So if you're not providing that, you might find yourself losing some top talent. One of the standout findings is that developers are increasingly prioritizing work-life balance. Now, this has been a hot topic, and I'm going to talk about what Eric Schmidt said in another recording here, so make sure you like and subscribe because I'll bring that to you in one of our next videos. I don't think I'm going to quite dive into that today, but the shift is critical for companies to understand that if they want to attract and retain skilled developers, it's not just about offering remote work, it's about creating a culture that values mental health and personal time. As a leader with 25 years in the industry, I've seen the toll that burnout can take, and so it's refreshing to see this priority being given some airtime. Now, I want to pull up the report for you here and actually go over some of the specifics of the report. And while I'm pulling that up here, we're going to talk a little bit more. So another interesting point from the survey is on the emphasis on continuous learning. Developers are eager to keep their skills sharp. I think we all know that if we want to stay relevant in the industry, we've got to stay sharp. So we're seeking out opportunities for professional development more than ever. This means that companies need to invest in their employees' growth, offering training, certifications, and I think most importantly, time to explore new technologies. And when they provide this, it becomes a win-win because the developers stay engaged and up to date. They're also bringing in new ideas, and the company benefits from having a cutting-edge team. Remember, in this fast-paced world of tech, standing still is the quickest way to fall behind. All right, so let's jump into this report here a little bit, and I want to show you some of the exacts, even as so I'm talking through some of these, but I want to show you what I'm talking about here. So, for starters, to give you kind of an idea here, Stack Overflow, they unpack the 2024 Developer Survey, which polled more than 65,000 developers. So that's a pretty good sample size. I think it's, some might say it's skewed. I can't figure out how it'd be skewed, but probably skewed a little bit towards some of this, but. So this year they've had a section about embedded technologies and what people are looking for in embedded technologies. So we're going to kind of run through some of these. So Raspberry Pi and Arduino actually really kind of make the top of this, right? And new GCC. So I would say these two are getting into, these are a lot of the builds, the LLVMs, Chang, right? But the I can't talk this morning. The new GCC and CMake are what you're going to do to build a custom kernel for Linux. And so those are actually going to go into the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi. But it can also go into other things because when I started Clean Router, we use OpenWRT, and I'm actually still working on a project that I'm documenting here on my channel about OpenWRT. So developers are going where they have been. Software developers is practice perpetual learning. So like this is online resources to learn how to code, right? So technical documentation, Stack Overflow's second, of course, is probably biased report because it's from Stack Overflow. written tutorials, blogs, how-to videos, right? And so on the note of how-to videos, we have hundreds of code samples here at StartupHakk. Make sure you download all the latest code samples because we work really hard to try to bring you guys a lot of really good coding samples. And so I have hundreds of videos. So search the channel and make sure that you are really looking at that because as you can see, the how-to videos and kind of written tutorials, we kind of combine them in our videos and also provide code samples for you with every single coding video. Now, what are the challenges and frustrations that we want to get through? Silence and experience by developer type, right? So let me zoom in on this because I can't even read it and I'm close. So you've got your senior executives, dev advocate, manager, dev experience. So you can see these are scattered all over, and your front-end academic research. So my guess is this is a bunch of the web dev jobs that most universities are running, right? In the low, in the high 40s. So this is an interesting scattering of where those end up. AI tools. So So the promised Gen AI will be ability to deliver quick solutions and speed up time-consuming process. However, 31% of developers remain skeptical. I'm in that skeptical crowd. I think it's a good tool, and I think we should definitely be using it. But I don't think we're going to actually get Gen AI the way people are talking about. And I've talked a lot about that, and I was just reading more reports on Phi 3 this morning, which is a small language model. So not an LLM, it's an SLM, small language model. Anyways, AI tools' abilities to handle complex tasks very well, 3%. This is by developers. So if this was by executives, you'd get a totally different number, right? But this is by developers. So good but not great, 32%. Neither good nor bad, 20%. Bad at handling complex. I definitely think there's a fair number of OG developers that are like, no, and then very poor. You can see 40% is making up the bad, right? Most common frustrations, amount of technical debt is the staggering winner here of amount of most common frustrations. And I think this is really funny. I think one of the first things when I deploy new teams onto projects is when I tell them, this is a brand new project, it's greenfield. Man, developers sign up for those projects really quick. Complexity of the tech stack. I wish they would have let you see the whole thing. Reliability of tools or systems, right? And so I think this is 31% is all the people that have to code on Node versus getting to use the ones that get to use .NET. I don't think reliability of tools and systems are going to be a complaint by most .NET developers, but probably mostly Java and Node developers. Tracking my work. Almost a third of people, or 27% of people said they hate having to track their work. This is an interesting one. As a manager and somebody who's managed developers for over a decade, I understand the desire to track work. I think, this is a tricky one. So I could probably make a whole video about how much developers hate and why they hate having to track their work. It's difficult, and one of the biggest reasons for this is because of the R&D tax credit, where companies can track that work and then write a huge chunk of it off in taxes. But a lot of developers end up feeling like this becomes a tool to get smacked over the head with. Patching, update core components, number of software tools, showing my contributions, right? None of these. Maintaining security, right? This is a really interesting one. Amount of technical debt. That's a funny thing that hands down the most common. By almost double of the second was the amount of technical debt. So that's kind of a funny one. So I think they've, they're continuing to, there's more and more, so developer profile, top 10 countries is US. Not a huge surprise there. Has Stack Overflow count 63 or 76%? I think this is kind of skewed because this is Stack Overflow doing the. So if you aren't on Stack Overflow, you can't very well go do the survey, right? I don't know. I don't know exactly how they gathered their research. But they did get 65,000 coders from 185 countries. Have used JavaScript in the past year, 62%. Kind of curious what the other 30% are coding in, like a bunch of old crusty C++ developers or something, because I'm a pretty hardcore .NET developer, and you still use JavaScript a bunch. Educational attainment, learning to code. Online resources are the top choice for developers to learn to code, according to 82% of the respondents. So again, that's why here at StartupHakk, we love to train software developers. So we provide hundreds of free coding samples. Check out the channel, dig through. We've got lots of different coding samples. And as you go and do these, you'll see them. They'll say free coding samples. It's truly free. It's a totally wide open GitHub with over 500 different coding samples and videos to go with them. So if you're a developer, go check them out. If you're not a developer and you want to become a developer, or you're a brand new developer and you want to dive in really quick into the industry, we do offer a coding boot camp that can get you up to speed to an intern level in 3 months. I know a lot of people are going to hate on me and say, there's no way you can train a developer in 3 months. You're right. You're not going to become a seasoned developer in 3 months. But you'll be able to write code, and you'll be able to write all of it, and I could put you to work as an intern. Anyways, very interesting read. I'm going to put all these links down into the bottom. I'm going to kind of go back to my synopsis on these, though, here, on some of the other high-end notes that I found. Apologies. The survey also highlights a growing demand for transparency and communication from leadership. Developers want to know why behind the what. They're not just code monkeys, after all. They crave an understanding of the company's vision, strategy, and how their work fits into the bigger picture. I know as I've been starting here at StartupHakk, we have 3 head business. One of it is you're doing it right now by watching here on YouTube. We also have our coding boot camps, and we also provide custom consulting software under a fractional CTO, as well as other consulting. So as I've shared my vision of StartupHakk with the developers, even on the consulting side, it's fun to watch them get bought in on the company's vision. So developers are feeling that they want this transparency, and it's a call to action for leaders to be more open and communicative. In my experience, when developers feel connected to the mission, their work becomes more meaningful and their productivity soars. Again, just tell your guys the why. Just don't tell them just the what. So one area that stood out in the survey is the increasing popularity of DevOps and continuous integration, continuous deployment practices. Developers are leaning heavily into these methodologies to streamline workflow and improve code quality. It's not just about automating tasks, it's about fostering a culture of collaboration and efficiency. So if you're not already on board with DevOps, if you're still manually deploying code, it's probably time to get caught up. Industry is moving towards faster, more reliable deployment cycles, and embracing these practices can help you stay competitive, but not only that, they'll actually still help you keep secure, right? If you're still signing on to servers and deploying code, man, your chance of getting hacked is super high. So security is another major concern, and that's a great lead-in. Security is another major concern that developers are placing at the forefront of their work. With the rise of cyber threats, there's a growing awareness that security needs to be integrated into every stage of the development process. Now, I've read other reports that say that security-specific developers are growing at a rate of 30% year over year right now, but everybody needs to be aware of this, right? The survey shows that developers are hungry for more knowledge in this area, and they're seeking tools and practices that can help them build secure applications. So this isn't just a checkbox item, it's a core part of delivering robust, reliable software. Companies that invest in security training and tools are better positioned to handle the challenge of modern digital landscape. So make sure you check out our code samples because we've got lots of everything we provide teaches about security. Diversity and inclusion are no longer just buzzwords. Another key takeaway is the growing preference for open source software and contributions. Developers are not only using open source tools more than ever, but they're also actively contributing to these projects. This collaborative spirit is reshaping the industry, and companies that encourage open source contributions can benefit from a more engaged and skilled workforce. Embracing open source isn't just about saving money on software. It's about being part of a global community that push technology forward. I know right now, like I said, we're working on a project with these with some of these OpenWRT routers. We have a couple of different projects. One of them is a completely open source mesh. The technology is starting to get a little old with it. It's called Free Mesh. You can go check it out at freemeshwireless.com. But with that, I'm actually currently, I was actually up last night, working on a new build that'll provide 3 Wi-Fi 6 nodes that'll allow you, and all open source, so that nobody's stealing your data. Because you know that Eero and all those other ones, they're doing that. The Google, all that, they're doing all that because they're sniffing your data. They're absolutely just straight up stealing your data. So finally, jump in. So anyways, one of the notes about that is we'd made some differences, and I was working with a developer on one of these routers, and I said, hey, let's make sure we push these changes back into the repository, right, so that other people can take advantage of it. So finally, the survey highlights the importance of ethical considerations in developers. Developers are increasingly aware of the impact of their work on society, and they want to ensure that building technology does more good than harm. So whether it's data privacy, AI ethics, or sustainable coding practices, developers are looking for employers who take these issues seriously. This shift towards ethical development is something every company should pay attention to. When Google first started in the beginning, they had the motto of do no evil. Somehow that went away as they got big, and now I guess the motto is maybe they should do more evil. Anyways, if you're talking about the antitrust judge, he thinks they're definitely doing more evil. So the 2024, this 2024 survey is an interesting one, right? Like, let's see what the most popular database technologies were here. So programming scripts and markup languages. By far the most popular is JavaScript. I think it's because absolutely every single project uses JavaScript at some level or another, right? We got C# right here. I'm curious, man. Maybe it's because I'm in the C# worlds, but boy, I sure don't see this compared to JavaScript. But TypeScript, SQL's in there. 51% of developers write SQL. I'm wondering what the other 49% are doing. For databases, Postgres has taken the lead, right? This is a huge thing. MySQL dominated this category for a long time, and Postgres has quickly taken off. And I know we felt the same thing here at StartupHakk as we've started to build stuff, build projects for people. We've leaned toward Postgres in our last two development instead of using MySQL. I've always used MySQL before, or if it's a large already existing corporate structure, we'll use Microsoft SQL Server. Redis is great for database cache, and so none of these really surprise me too much. Overall. The cloud platform, Amazon in the lead by a long shot. Azure second, Google Cloud here. Cloudflare is an interesting newcomer into this. Vercel is also an interesting newcomer. I'm a huge fan of DigitalOcean. We've built our most recent project on DigitalOcean, and the cost is just really low. So plug for DigitalOcean. We love their services. Web frameworks, Node is at the top with React right behind, jQuery with ASP.NET Core down here. It's kind of interesting because they have ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET split out. You take those together and you're getting a pretty huge jump. Those are interesting. Embedded technologies, like we talked about, Raspberry Pi, Arduino, other frameworks and libraries, .NET. So it's kind of interesting because it's like, hey, what web frameworks are you using? And they talk about this, but then they say, hey, what other frameworks and libraries? And .NET's at the top. So, and then again, .NET, and I'm assuming they mean .NET Core here, and the .NET Framework being the older model here. So, add those two together and you get pretty high. I'm a huge .NET fan, in case you can't tell. Other tools, Docker and NPM, obviously two big ones. The rest of these, I think, are kind of not as much. Integrated development environment, VS Code and Visual Studio lead the pack. Definitely no surprise there. I remember back in the early days, early 2000s, when I started really getting into writing a lot of .NET, because .NET was released in 2002, and I remember hearing people say, like in 2004, 2005, even old crusty Linux kernel developers saying, only reason to use .NET is Visual Studio because it's such a great tool. Without doubt, it's the best IDE. So lots of different other things in here. You can see there's tons of great breakdowns of different things, of different pieces in here. Let's look at purchasing technologies, right? Influence on technology purchases. Prefer to build or buy. This is an interesting build and buy, or build and buy. Kind of all a toss-up. That doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Tech endorsement factors. Do they have an API? Surprise. If you're talking to developers, being able to, if you want to sell to developers, having an API is absolutely critical. Anyways, it's a good, healthy report. I'll put the links down in the comments, so make sure you hit those. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And again, thanks, devs, for telling us what you want, what you really, really want, and we will catch you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.